Pokemon movies. Again, you know the drill by now, and if you don't, you got some catching up to do. But after 19 movies, 20 if you count both the Victini ones, we've reached the home stretch. I can finally count the amount of movies left on one hand. Only 5 left. This last group is going to be a little interesting though. If you've watched the previous parts, you know I chose what I consider my favorite and least favorite movies from each era to talk about in more detail. But here's the thing. I liked all of the movies in the modern era, so instead of talking in detail about one favorite and one least favorite, I'm doing away with that system and I'm just talking about each movie as long as I want to. Oh yeah, and for the grading, I'll just put it up on the screen because I don't want to explain it for a third time. Yes, Ash dying is part of the final score, and no, it isn't flawed. You just hate fun. Sorry. Now, let's finish off this last batch of movies, starting with Pokemon the movie, I Choose You. Before giving the synopsis and all that, let me just gush about the art direction and animation in this movie real quick. The Pokemon movies had always looked good on like a base level, a decent amount better than how the TV anime looks, but this is a significant step up in almost every way. The characters and scenery look incredible, the battle choreography and animation are top tier, and everything else just comes together for a genuinely beautiful film to look at. And the craziest part is, this isn't even the best looking movie in this era, in my opinion. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Here's how this one goes. Being the official 20th Pokemon movie, this is a celebration of the anime, so to speak. It retells the first few episodes, but with a new coat of paint and some twists here and there. Everything up until Ash seeing Ho-Oh is exactly the same, but after that it starts to shift. He meets up with 2 trainers named Verity and Sorrel, who are the companions in this reimagining. They try to catch Entei, but it doesn't go too well and he runs off. Y'all should get a Pokemon with Mean Look next time, it really helps. Trust me. Something I should mention is that Marshadow is basically the crux of this movie, which was kinda odd at first, but I'm glad something was done with him compared to the games, because he got nothing. Eventually the scene where Ash saves a Charmander in the rain takes place. In the original anime, it was Damien, the reincarnation of the devil, who left Charmander behind, but this time it's a dude named Cross. While this scene is going on, we learn about Sorrel's goal to meet the legendary beast, and we get a backstory sequence of how they came to be, which was genuinely super cool. Ash also talks about his goal, which in this movie is to find and catch Ho-Oh with the rainbow feather he received. Then there's this coolest battle between Ash and Cross. Charmander evolved into Charmeleon and tries to take on Cross's Incineroar. But we don't really need to talk about the conclusion, because like, who even cares about that? Just trying your best is all that matters. That's what I always say. Anyway, the animation in this battle was so great. This is how I used to imagine Pokemon battles in my head as a kid. Lots of movement and back and forth, super flashy moves, so much intensity. It's just a great battle. Yeah, so after that, Ash throws a tantrum and basically tells Pikachu to off himself. Not exactly. He actually says he should have picked a different Pokemon instead, but let's be real, I don't think there's a worse thing you can say to a Pokemon than that. He gets tired from being extra and takes a little nap, in which he dreams about being in a world without Pokemon and sees how much it sucks. Like, we get it, Pokemon are so cool, and we know our world sucks without them, you don't gotta rub it in. Anyways, he reconciles with Pikachu and everything turns out good in the end. After this, another scene from the original anime shows up, and I don't think we need to talk about this one. If you ask me, it's perfectly valid to skip. It almost has no purpose of even being here. Fuck. Just move on. Speeding through the rest, the group meets up with some old guy who's pretty chill with Ho-Oh, and he takes him to the top of this mountain. A rematch with Cross takes place, and Charmeleon evolves into Charizard, basically sweeping the rest of the battle. Cross gets salty and steals the Rainbow Feather, attempting to summon Ho-Oh. Then Marshadow comes out of nowhere and possesses the feather, leading to a bunch of Pokemon becoming evil, and Ash taking a hit from every single one to protect Pikachu. It looked pretty rough, but knowing Ash, I'm sure he'll be fine. Let's go, another Ash death, baby. Yes! But as usual, it's okay because Pikachu speaks English to him and he comes back to life. I mean, as you do. Then Ash and Pikachu attempt to battle Ho-Oh because it's here now and they lose pretty quickly. And that's more or less the end of the movie. The group goes their separate ways and continue to chase their dreams happily ever after. Now, you could say this movie is nostalgia bait and I wouldn't fully disagree with you on that, but this one was cute. Let's grade it. Like I just said, this one was super cute and fun. It felt like a real celebration of how far the Pokemon anime has come over the years. But it would have felt like even more of a celebration if some of the original characters came back instead of replacing them with new ones that are hard to get invested in. Not to say I didn't like these characters, it's just hard not to wish it was Misty and Brock instead, you know? And the overall story was good. Not amazing, but you know, it was good. 3 out of 5. I already gushed about them, but the battles were truly top tier. Not much more to say than what I already did. 5 out of 5. It might have been nostalgia bait, but I did enjoy this one quite a bit. Seeing old scenes from the anime get revisited was cathartic and just made me feel really nice and warm. 4 out of 5. And Ash's mortality goes without explaining. 5 out of 5. Finally, bonus point for the theme song. Pokemon the movie, I Choose You, gets an 18 out of 20. Probably a little higher than how most of you guys would rate it, but remember, Ash dying changes these ratings a lot. So if you want something closer to a quote-unquote real rating, just take out the Ash mortality part and make it out of 15 points instead. But adding points because Ash died is funny, so sue me. Moving on, we have Pokemon the movie, The Power of Us. Warning, this section has a lot less jokes because I just genuinely really enjoy this movie and I wanted to talk about it in more detail, so if you can't handle more than 30 seconds straight without a funny, please skip to the next movie. Thank you. If you somehow stupidly thought that I was done gushing about the art direction of this era, you are sorely mistaken and very stupid. This is the prettiest Pokemon movie thus far, no question. Setting, the characters, the effects, the Pokemon themselves, every single part of this movie is genuinely beautiful. Hula City is one of the most gorgeous settings from any of these movies, and the characters have never felt more alive with incredible designs that portray their personalities so simply and effectively. And Ash himself looks great in this film. Definitely my second favorite Ash design ever. What's the first? Slow down, we'll get to him soon. As for the animation, it blew me away. The subtle character movements and snappy cuts of Pokemon using their moves, all brought together by amazing art direction and line work on the characters themselves. The Power of Us is just a treat for the eyes, full stop. But enough of that for now. Let's talk about the movie itself. Like I said, this film is set in a place called Hula City. Every year they hold a festival for Lugia in order for him to grant them another year of wind. He's back to haunt me from my 2000 review. It started long ago when the people living here formed a promise with Lugia and he was chill with them, so it was no big deal. I mean, the town was on his way to work anyways, so it's really no sweat. So every year Lugia comes to the Sacred Flame and hooks him up with some wind. Ash is in the town for the wind festival and helps this little girl named Margot. She just so happens to be the mayor's daughter. At the same time, we're introduced to a bunch of other characters. Callahan, a con artist, Torin, a boy failure, Risa, a girl failure, and Harriet, a grandma. There's a lot of characters, so it's easy to get confused, but all of them are what makes this movie so good, so try and stay with me here. To keep it from getting too confusing, I think the best way to structure this is to talk about each individual character's arc and how they all converge at the end instead of trying to piece it together as I explain what happened. Since this whole movie is about growth and coming together to solve a shared issue, I think it's best to focus on the characters rather than the plot this time around. But I'll still be touching on it as we go on. So, starting with Risa. She's a pretty normal girl who used to run track, but was injured, so she gave up on it. Her brother is in the hospital for a seemingly similar injury, but he asked for a favor. He wants her to go catch an Eevee for him out in the wild. Risa is kinda ass when it comes to dealing with and catching Pokemon, so she enlists the help of Ash to find it. I just want to say, that's basically like winning the lottery. Oh, I need to catch a Pokemon. Let me just accidentally run into the multiple-time world champ to help me catch it. I feel like you're more likely to get struck by lightning 20 times in the same spot. Eventually, they run into one and have a really cool, dynamic battle and ends up catching it, becoming quick friends. Not too long after, Team Rocket attacks the science presentation for reasons I'll get to later, and everyone in the attendance starts to freak out, running around and trampling Risa's Eevee. Right before, Ash ran off to chase after Team Rocket, but Risa hesitated to run. Could this be subtle character storytelling? Eevee gets healed up quickly, and Risa blames herself for not being able to step in and help Eevee when she needed it the most. Now she has the same injury as Risa, more or less. Same location at least. But she grows from this and runs when they need her the most during the climax of the movie. Eevee shows Risa that even with the injury of her past haunting her, she can still break through and run. It's honestly beautiful. Seeing her beat her fears of running, of getting injured again, it's extremely inspiring for anyone who might be in a similar position. And it doesn't just have to be about running. It can be true for almost any passion or hobby. Definitely one of my favorite characters in this movie. Moving on, we have the mayor's daughter named Margot. The main thing you need to know is that Margot is secretly taking care of an injured Zeraora deep in a nearby mountain forest. Zeraora has beef with humanity because they colonized the Pokemon's forest and built Fula City, you know, what humans are best at. Previous mayor of Fula City made the citizens believe Zeraora was gone, and if you took one step on the mountain, you'd be cursed, leaving a not-so-healthy relationship for Zeraora and the current townspeople. Callahan makes up some bullshit after a catching competition, that he cheated in by the way, about some kind of rare Pokemon in the mountains. Obviously, he was pulling it out of his ass, but this spurred on some Pokemon hunters to go out searching. So in order to keep Zeraora from getting hurt, Margot stole the Sacred Flame so the festival would have to be cancelled, keeping people from searching too hard. This backfires though, and the wind of the town begins to disappear. Margot's character arc is just as much Zeraora's character arc, and I'd argue that she's only there in order to bring Zeraora's change. Because in the climax of the movie, a power plant explodes in the mountain and it catches fire, putting the Pokemon and townspeople in danger. Zeraora instantly pushes the blame on humans, and he isn't completely wrong, but the message that Margot teaches him is that not every human is this heartless monster as he sees it. There are good people, and they'll always overcome the negative forces when they come together to help each other out. This is shown through Margot herself, Ash, and the rest of the town as they help put out the fire and support Zeraora. Also in Risa, who was delivering the Sacred Flame back to its pedestal when she ran again. Positive emotions bring on change in people and give them motivation to help each other when they need it the most, and it's a really good message. Next, we probably have my favorite character of the movie, Callahan. Like I said, he's a con artist, but he's got a good heart. At the start of the film, he's hanging out with his sister Mia and his niece Kelly at the Wind Festival. Kelly believes Callahan to be this walking encyclopedia who knows everything there is to know about Pokemon, but he obviously plays it up to impress her. He even goes on a tangent legend about how he saved the city from the mountain fire all those years ago. Like, come on, we all know that isn't true, bud. You know how earlier I mentioned that catching contest that he cheated in? Well, he asked Torrin to help coach him live through the competition in order to take the win. In return, Callahan agreed to present Torrin's research at his presentation, since he's too nervous to do it himself. But Callahan doesn't show up, and due to some SD cards getting switched around, Torrin accidentally puts up the footage of him coaching Callahan on the big screen, outing him as a cheater and a liar. Back during the contest itself, he ran into a Sudowoodo, which is an obvious reflection of Callahan himself, a Pokemon who fakes it to make it, just like him. He caught it pretty soon after, but once he was outed at the presentation, he abandoned everything out of guilt, even his Sudowoodo. But after an effect spore bomb begins to fill the whole city, he decides he needs to redeem himself by helping out in order to save Mia and Kelly. He reunites with Sudowoodo and helps Harriet reach the generating station on top of the mountain. The plan is to restart it and use a gigantic fan to blow the effect spore smoke away from the city with a Lumberry bomb. So he throws it into the fan, and it works. To go from a guy relying on lying to get by to throwing all of that away and becoming a hero to the city, just like he lied about at the start, it's really great. Arguably, his character arc isn't as powerful as Risa's, for example, at least for me, but he's still my favorite due to the sheer determination he has to better himself in the second half. Love this guy. Harriet had probably the least content when it comes to her arc, but hers is definitely the most hardcore by far. She's introduced as this grumpy old lady who hates Pokemon and is just kind of hanging around until the climax where it's revealed that she built the generating station for the city back in the day. Okay, so I want you to sit down for this next bit, just trust me. Back when the fire first hit the mountain, all those years ago, the generating station was caught up in it. Harriet had a Snubbull, and it sacrificed its life to get her back the key to the station. This Snubbull gets engulfed in flames right before our eyes. Now, I know this probably sounds like SpongeBob Kid roller coaster gift to anyone not really into Pokemon, but like, this is pretty messed up for their standards, I'd say. But her fear of Pokemon isn't necessarily a fear. She just pushes Pokemon away so she doesn't have to feel that same pain she did back when her Snubbull was killed. Through her determination to save the city, and with the help of Pokemon though, she's able to push past this part of herself and activate the generating station. All thanks to her Snubbull getting her that key back then. Last, but certainly not least, we have Torrin. He's an anxious and awkward scientist who wants to help people in Pokemon through his research. Due to his anxiety though, he doesn't get much respect from his fellow scientists, except one guy who supports him. They see him as someone who can't live up to the feats he wants to achieve and is always screwing up, like with his presentation that he wanted Callahan to help with. But when the town is in crisis, he steps up and figures out how to counteract the effect spore bomb with Lumberries, taking his stand as a scientist and growing as a person. Similar to Harriet, there isn't as much content as, say, Risa has, but he's still a fun character, and seeing him stand up for himself was very satisfying. He's also really funny, so. Whew. Okay, that was a lot. It wasn't my plan to write this much about the Power of Us, but it is what it is. What can I say? There's just a lot to talk about here with all the wonderful characters. You probably noticed by how I didn't mention him much at all, but Ash takes a little bit of a backseat in this one due to the focus of the movie being about everyone coming together and issues not being solved by a single individual. I, for one, really enjoyed the switch up, even though I love Ash. It's just nice to see original Pokemon characters get the focus and time they deserve. Not something I can really say about all these movie original characters, you know? But with all that out of the way, let's get to the rating. The story was a 5 out of 5. It was really hard to have it come across in the explanation, but all of these characters' stories I talked about converge and intersect so seamlessly that makes it so satisfying to watch. And everyone's personal struggles and weaknesses felt connected to the plot in some way and made them feel all involved. I liked it a lot. Like the last movie, the battles were so good. The dynamic battles here are, and I say this with the utmost sincerity, sick as hell. The way animators play with the camera so much in these scenes is genuinely amazing. 5 out of 5. It wasn't obvious by the runtime of this section compared to every other movie. I liked this one a lot. The art direction, the characters, the music, the battles, the setting, just everything. It's right up my alley. 5 out of 5. And finally, Ash's mortality. I didn't get to mention it much since I was talking about the other characters, but Ash was in immediate danger a few times, taking some electricity from Zeraora, taking even more electricity from Zeraora, and almost getting crushed by a radio tower trying to save Margot. Thankfully, Zeraora was there though, so it's fine. 3 out of 5. Pokemon the movie, The Power of Us, gets an 18 out of 20. Believe it or not, even though I glazed it like crazy, this wasn't my favorite Pokemon movie. You'll know when we get there, but moving on, next up is Detective Pikachu. If you didn't already know, Detective Pikachu isn't like all the other movies we talked about before. It's got Ryan Reynolds in it. This one's an interesting case since it's not an anime movie, but it's actually a pretty nice change of pace. I remember back when this movie came out and seeing it in theaters, and I thought it was a really refreshing take on what a Pokemon film could be. I really hope they make a sequel one day, but out of all the movies here, I'm sure most of you have seen this one because it was a pretty big deal, so I'll try to keep the synopsis brief. Welcome to the first Pokemon movie without Ash as the protagonist, meaning we're gonna have to switch up the mortality rating to something else. I've got some ideas, but we'll get back to that once we're at the grading section, alright? Tim Goodman, a guy working as an insurance salaryman, goes on a journey to find out the truth behind the death of his father, Harry. Harry was a detective in Rhyme City and suddenly went missing one day, but Tim learns that he actually was killed in a car crash during an investigation. He meets Ryan Reynolds, Detective Pikachu, and a reporter girl who's also investigating Harry's death. As creepy as some of them can be, I really like the realistic approach to the Pokemon designs in this movie. It makes sense since they worked with RJ Palmer, the guy behind all those Pokemon but realistic drawings from back in the day, so they were bound to look extremely cool. Though as much as I love Greninja, it's kind of terrifying in this movie. Speaking of Greninja though, they're kept in this secret lab located far off the beaten path, close to where Harry was killed. This lab is where Mewtwo was recaptured and experimented on until it broke out and wiped everyone off the map. The group is here to see if they can find any clues about Harry's death, when they get ambushed by said Greninja and are chased out of the lab, running into these huge-ass Torterra that are so cool. The moments before it's revealed that they're actually Torterra was one of my favorites, because they set up that there were Torterras in this lab, but they broke out somehow. Then all of the mountains start shifting unnaturally, and it's like, genuinely, how is this happening? And then it shows all the Torterra, and man, it's just a super cool scene. Definitely one of the highlights. But because of the Torterra, Pikachu almost dies, but gets healed by a bunch of grass-type Pokemon. Just kidding, it was actually Mewtwo. What's up, man? Oh, he's captured. Oh, okay. You seem a little busy, so we'll catch up another time. It's cool. Drama happens, and Pikachu learns that it was actually the group of Greninja that killed Harry in the accident, and Mewtwo put Harry's consciousness into Pikachu's body. So the whole time, Tim's dad was actually Pikachu, but it's not actually Pikachu since it's his dad. Oh, and I kind of forgot to mention that there's a big bad in this movie named Howard trying to move his consciousness into Mewtwo. And it works for a bit, but eventually the plan is foiled and everyone is saved. And Ryan Reynolds, Dad, is back. A happy ending. Now let's grade. The story itself was fun, but not anything too crazy. The part I really liked the most was the relationship between Tim and Harry. It was extremely sweet and pulled on my heartstrings a little bit, so 4 out of 5. The battles were cool, but not too memorable for me personally. Seeing the realistic Pokemon duke it out was definitely a childhood dream of mine come true, but I don't know. None of them really stuck with me that much. 3 out of 5. Enjoyment was a 4 out of 5. Like I said before, I really like certain scenes, like the Torterra one, and the chemistry between the characters was fun to watch. And as for Ash's mortality, we can't really use that one here, so I've come up with a special unique rating just for this movie, Ryan Reynolds. And I feel like it goes without saying, but it's a 5 out of 5 Ryan Reynolds. Controversial? I know, but someone's gotta say it. It's my cross to bear. Detective Pikachu gets a 16 out of 20. I liked it. Now, moving on, we have another interesting case as it's a remake of a movie we've already talked about. So let's get into it. So you probably could have guessed, but I've got the least to say about this one. Seeing as it's practically a one-to-one remake of the first movie, the rating almost stays the exact same. The only difference is that enjoyment loses a few points due to me never really getting used to the character designs and art style in the movie. The Pokemon themselves look great, and honestly everything else does too, but the character looked a bit uncanny to me and I could never really shake that vibe. That gives it a 3 out of 5, but the scale of the battles felt a lot grander since they had a lot more free reign with the camera, so that takes battles up to a 4 out of 5. Here's the other scores that are staying the same real quick, and if you want to know why, then go check out part 1 where I talked about the original. I don't really want to repeat myself too much. Pokemon Mewtwo Strikes Back Evolution gets a 17 out of 20. 1 point less than the original, but it's still good. Last, and certainly not least, we have the final Pokemon movie as of 2024. Pokemon the movie Secrets of the Jungle. So, without further ado, let's talk about my personal favorite Pokemon movie of all time. I know I literally just hyped it up seconds ago, but here we are. The Final Destination, the last Pokemon movie as of this video going up, and my favorite Pokemon movie as of this video going up. Before we get too deep into it, I want to preface that this is the only movie I watched in Japanese with English subs. If you haven't seen the movie or just watched it in English, I won't give away why just yet, but it's a pretty important thing to mention, if you ask me, and you'll see why. Just like The Power of Us, this movie is absolutely beautiful. The art direction is very similar to The Power of Us, and it's, again, just an absolute treat for the eyes. What more can I say? But I won't gush too much right away like the other ones, because I don't want to pad my script more than than I already have, I'll try and hold myself back for now, so let's just get into the movie. It starts with a pack of wild Zarude singing their really cool theme song. Like, seriously, it's pretty good. Just look up Zarude chant if you haven't heard it, because there's no way I'm risking playing it here. I want to get on Mr. Pokemon's good side, alright? They're pretty mean to the wild Pokemon, seeing most of the jungle as their territory because of their big-ass tree called the Heart Tree, which is pretty cool, I guess. You guys don't gotta be assholes about it, though. While out on their patrols, one of the Zarude, who I'll just be calling Dad going forward, finds an abandoned child and takes it back to their base. The others don't want anything that isn't a Zarude here, so Dad decides to leave and raise the baby. 10 years later, Coco, the child Dad found, is thriving in the jungle and helping Pokemon wherever he can. Cut to Ash in a nearby place called Millifit Town. Slight tangent, Ash's design in this movie is my absolute favorite design he's ever gotten. I don't know exactly why, but there's just something about it that speaks to me. Maybe the fit itself, the colors, the face, I don't know. I just feel it in my gut, you know? He's here for no particular reason other than to explore, so he goes into the jungle and runs into some scientists doing some water research. Guys, I'm pretty sure we already know everything there is to know about water, so quit wasting your time and research something more, I don't know, important. Anyways, I gotta get back to writing this 29-page summary of every Pokemon movie, so don't bother me again, alright? Meanwhile, Coco is fighting with the other Zarude over them trying to colonize more of the jungle. Dad steps in and gets him out of there, but Coco starts to have an identity crisis, not sure if he's even a Zarude. He runs off and, oops, metal pipe. Ash saves him though and brings him back to the Pokemon Center where he proceeds to freak out as if he showed a Victorian child a TikTok for You page. But Pikachu is able to communicate with him and they all become friends and just have a good time. It doesn't last very long because Coco pieces it together that he's human and confronts Dad about it. He's not actually a Zarude and never will be. At least that's what Coco says. But I believe in you, Coco. And you can be a Zarude if you really try. I'm sure there's some local conventions that would gladly accept you. Dad knew this would happen eventually and decides to show him the truth. They go to an abandoned lab where a photo of Coco's birth parents remains. Then he gives Coco this ring on a necklace that he had when he was a baby and just leaves. Ash actually mentions his dad for once and talks about how he pushed Ash to pursue his dreams and never give up. This helps give Coco motivation to learn about his parents. And there's this really cute scene where they find out his parents were connected to the water researchers from earlier. Ash points to their logo and is like, Coco, go? And Coco is like, Coco, go. It's just so sweet. I love it a lot. Back at the lab, they meet the lead researcher named Zed, who instantly recognizes Coco's ring. Turns out his parents were the previous lead researchers of the lab, and Coco's birth name is Al. Al, huh? Kind of a weird name, don't you think? Zed scanned Coco's ring, and it was basically his parents' flash drive with all their shit on it. Oh yeah, and his parents have been dead for years. I like this scene a lot because Coco can't understand what they're saying, but instantly knows the truth when he sees their reactions. I just like when language is pushed aside and people's emotions are read instead. It's really cool. On the ring drive, they also find an image of the Heart Tree, and Zed is oddly interested in its location. I'm sure it's strictly for only good reasons, of course. Coco runs off, but Zed put a tracker on him, so he leads him directly to the Heart Tree by accident. Okay, yeah, so he's evil. I probably should have expected that, to be honest. You'd think after all these movies I'd be able to pick up on that stuff, but you know, here we are. It's whatever. A bunch of human versus nature stuff happens, and Dad gets badly injured by the scientist's giant mech in the process. I feel like y'all don't really need a giant mech for what you do, but hey, I'm not the scientist here, so maybe I'm crazy. Zed then proceeds to shoot a huge anchor into the Heart Tree. Okay, I'm seeing why you might need this thing. Not too long after, it's revealed that Zed was the reason why Coco's parents died, killing them in a car accident in order to get his hands on the research. Back when they were the research leads, they had found out about the Heart Tree, but refused to do anything with it since it was used and cared for by Pokemon, and they didn't want to interfere with that. But Zed really wanted that tree, man. So he spent this whole time trying to find that research and learn the location of the tree, even if it meant killing them in the process. So yeah, a bit of a bombshell, but even his employees were surprised, so I don't feel too stupid for trusting him. While all that was going on, Dad used the help of the forest Pokemon to get a power-up and fight Zed with a whole army in this super sick battle. But he gets hurt badly protecting Coco, so they take him to the water of the tree, which is supposed to heal any injury, but it doesn't work. And right after saying how proud he is of Coco, he dies right there. I don't even care. I don't even give a shit. Coco does the only thing he can think of and tries to heal Dad with the power of Zarude, but it doesn't work until it actually does, and he's revived. And while this is going on, Ash, Pikachu, and the other Zarude take out Zed's robot once and for all. They hang him by the arm over the side of a tree. The other scientists apologize, and the Zarude realize they should be a lot more chill and let the other Pokemon hang out sometimes. Now, this last part is why I specifically watched the sub. Coco decides he wants to go on an adventure as he's found his purpose. He wants to become the bridge between people and Pokemon since he's both. He's a human and a Zarude. Dad pretends to be fake mad and Coco runs off grabbing his things and swinging through the forest. At this point, a song starts playing. A song sung from Dad's perspective about raising Coco and what it means to be a parent. The chorus swells as the Heart Tree erupts into multiple huge geysers. Send off for Coco as he leaves for his adventure. Fuck this scene, dude. It's not bad. It's actually extremely good, and that's what makes me so mad. because I cry every time I watch this scene and read the lyrics of the song. It being from Dad's perspective, thanking Coco for being a part of his life, him saying he's not some hero or a big superstar, but he'll always be Coco's dad, and he's so proud of that fact. It's cinema at its finest. And the dub just doesn't have this at all. Whew. Man, right, grading. Yeah, let's do that before I start crying again, alright? The messaging and characters in the story were so profound and had a lot of weight to them that made me truly care about what was happening. Coco and Dad's relationship was also extremely cute and felt so good for the heart to watch. He has genuine love for his son and it's so beautiful. I'm also always a fan of fish out of water related stories, so it does it for me in almost every aspect. 5 out of 5. The battles were cool, but there weren't too many actually. Everyone fighting off against the robot was one of the few main battles, with other action sequences thrown in here and there. They were all super nice though. 4 out of 5. I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of stumped on the enjoyment rating here. I really don't know what I should give it. You know, why even give things ratings? To make one thing better than the other? To say that the thing you like is better than something someone else likes? What's the point in that? What do you gain except some small fraction of self-satisfaction since you know the thing that you like is better? Just something to think about. Also, it gets a 5 out of 5. And for Ash's mortality, it's a 2 out of 5. It would have been a 1, but he tripped over some science equipment at some point, and that could have been extremely dangerous, so be more careful, man. And add a bonus point for the theme song. Pokemon the movie, Secrets of the Jungle, gets a 17 out of 20. Not the highest score, obviously, but like I said, the scores really don't matter that much. It's still my favorite Pokemon movie, even if it doesn't get a perfect 21 out of 20. I feel like people get too caught up in scores and ratings when deciding to watch something, or if they actually like something, but it doesn't have to be a 10 out of 10 masterpiece for you to enjoy it or really get into it. That doesn't matter. Basing how much you like something by its score or how universally loved it is keeps you away from truly enjoying something that might not be super well liked. But if you like it, who cares what the scores say? You like it, and that's the most important thing. Don't listen to what some random guy on the internet has to say about your favorite movie. Unless his name is Marker, then maybe you should hear him out. But for real, if it's your favorite, own it. Love the shit out of that movie or show or any piece of media. You get what I'm trying to say, right? Okay, enough philosophy. We did it. All 24 Pokemon movies. Doing this made me remember why I loved the Pokemon anime so much growing up. It took these pixels I saw on a screen and gave them so much life. Like I could really picture myself being there in that world. It was a part of Pokemon that I had honestly kind of forgotten about. So I'm really glad I was able to remember. I loved watching these movies again, but I hated writing this. It was extremely tedious, so I really hope you all enjoyed it. I won't be doing anything like this ever again. What a nightmare. But it's finally done. Finally done. And I can work on other videos now. Thank God. Before I go, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who found me through this little series and the immense support you have all given me. And if you found me before this series, thank you for continuing to support me and what I make. To be honest, it can be a little overwhelming, but I still greatly appreciate it nonetheless. So let me give thanks to a handful of specific people who are supporting me directly by being members of the channel. Moon, TSGG Freedom, The Holy Woomy with 69 nuggets of toasted chaos, Ethan, Zenith, and Pebby. Thank you all so much for supporting me. You don't understand how much it means to me, really.